It's staggering how much Fire Emblem Three Houses leaves stuff unexplained. Sometimes it adds intrigue to its story, but other times their writing choices seem so random and out of place that you're just left to scratch your head as to what just happened in a certain scene. For better or worse, this is a game full of mysteries. This mini-series sets out to unearth certain confusing scenes, explain popular fan theories, and try to rationalize what some moments might actually have meant. In this video, we focus on some Leicester Alliance / Golden Deer relevant mysteries, like the meaning behind God-Shattering Star's lyrics, the foundation of the Alliance, Leonie's relationship with Byleth, and like in the thumbnail, the potential identity of Claude's would-be killer. Once again, these are mostly theories and shouldn't be considered the be-all end-all for what the writers intended, but it's still fun to think about, so let's get started. Spirit Dais and God-Shattering Star's lyrics. Besides Edge of Dawn, the only other songs in the game that feature lyrics are Spirit Dais, Sothis' theme, and God-Shattering Star, Nemesis' theme. Yet, unlike Edge of Dawn, these use their own language rather than English and Japanese, leading many to wonder for a long time if the lyrics have an actual meaning, if they're just gibberish, and who could be the one singing them. In February of 2021, we finally got an answer to all these questions thanks to Three Houses' official soundtrack being released in Japan. The OST comes with the lyrics for Spirit Dais and God-Shattering Star, which, thanks to the efforts of S-Turv and Yum 88, I think that's enough yums, have been translated in English. The link to the lyrics can be found in the video's description. Long story short, Spirit Dais' lyrics come from an unknown author who talks about how the goddess heralds the arrival of a new dawn for Fodlan. And given how the song's lyrics are also reused at the start of Edge of Dawn, Crimson Flower and Azure Moon's final boss themes, which is a remix of Edelgard and Three Houses' main leitmotif, it becomes clear the song is meant to symbolize the end of Edelgard's journey and also how the start of a new world draws near, which is quite fitting for both scenarios. As for God-Shattering Star, not only we get the confirmation its lyrics are indeed sung by none other than Nemesis himself, the song as a whole is also meant to be one huge rousing speech for his undead army, as he asks them to fight again to take back their pride from beasts called God. This line in particular is a jab towards Seiros, as the fact that she had been one of the children of the goddess was not only an important aspect of herself she hid from nearly every one of her allies in the backstory, but also it's something she chose to reveal to Nemesis right before killing him in the very first cutscene of the game.
Tell me, Nemesis, do you recall the Red Canyon? You'll die in it! Die! Die! You took everything that I loved!
What went on during the founding of the Alliance? Per Garreg Mach's library, there are many series of historical events listed that gave birth to the Leicester Alliance. One of them was the death of King Klaus of Faerghast in Imperial Year 861, which led to the land's 3 princes to become archdukes and split the kingdom in 3 chunks that each one governed. As a refresher, one of these pieces, the Leicester region, was later split from the kingdom and became the Leicester Alliance. All this, yet the DLC book Burnt Remnants of a Report from Abyss puts this event into question. Item 22, Part 2. The Shadowed Order of the Knights of Seiros believes that King Klaus I of Faerghast was assassinated. Everyone believes that his will, which demands the territory be divided among the 3 princes and fails to name a successor, is a fake. The purpose was likely to involve the Leicester region and display a greater military force than the Empire. While it can't be understated how huge the implications of the report are, there is one key reason why this report is the only one of the 4 present in the book that still remains a mystery and is thus brought up here, which is a lack of evidence. The idea that Klaus was assassinated and a fake will was subsequently forged in his name just to improve Leicester's military position is interesting. Yet there are no clues anywhere in the game that either support or debunk this possibility. The statement found in the text is, from what we know, a hypothesis that implies that those close to King Klaus didn't expect to find a will asking to split the kingdom's territory between their 3 children, which admittedly is a rarity in Fodlan given it's expected the firstborn and or child with a crest will inherit the whole thing. The fact this theory has no clear answer has made fans speculate that maybe those who slither in the dark might have been involved in this. For one, the text containing this information also reveals they previously supported Faerghast's independence efforts a century earlier for the sake of destabilizing Fodlan, which the game does provide evidence to back it up. Second, the gang recently performed crest experiments on the Alliance's House Ordelia. And lastly, Verdant Wind reveals the Agarthans just so happen to have their headquarters in Alliance territory, specifically Goneril's. The possibility is there, don't get me wrong, but besides the lack of concrete evidence, it's also relying on the assumption that the entire scheme is something they would do. So from what we know, the actual truth could likely be something else entirely. For example, it's very much possible all 3 of King Klaus's kids could have been the ones who plotted his own death and subsequent splitting of Faerghast. After all, the text is clear that it's the shadowy order of the Knights of Seiros that were the ones that contested Klaus's death and will, meaning that no one from the Kingdom royal family was actually against the decision. Why didn't Leonie know about Byleth? Leonie Pinelli from the Golden Deer House is a commoner from Son Village, who is also the self-proclaimed apprentice to the mercenary Geralt, Byleth's father, and is aspiring to follow in his footsteps. Oddly enough, Byleth and Leonie somehow end up meeting only after fate has gathered both up in Garreg Monastery. Ever wondered what was up with that? To give more context, Leonie's status as Geralt's apprentice is given credence early into the game's story, as her interactions with Geralt make clear they both share some history together, which is revealed further in her support chains as they show Geralt first met her in 1174 as part of a job given by Count Gloucester to kick out poachers trying to hunt the village's wildlife.
Of course. We granted exclusive hunting rights to Son and forbade outsiders from poaching. In fact, when we received complaints about just that, we hired mercenaries to deal with the issue.
So that's what brought Gerald.
Long story short, Leonie became impressed by him and became his apprentice for the short time he worked on the area. The weirdest part about all this, which is acknowledged by both Leonie and Byleth, is that Gerald's kid, the Ashen Demon, was absent during this brief episode, and the game never clearly explains why. Leonie suspects Gerald probably left Byleth with a relative or someone of trust in the meantime, but that still raises questions. Well, the truth behind this mystery is actually revealed during the main story, but not as directly as you would think. It all starts with Gerald's diary Byleth and Sothis read in Chapter 9.
Day 2 of the Wyvern Moon. Sunny. I feel I must take the child and leave. But the church is always watching us. I don't know what Lady Rhea has planned. I used to think the world of Lady Rhea. Now I'm terrified of her. Day 8 of the Wyvern Moon. More rain. I used the fire that broke out last night to fake the child's death. Lady Rhea is in a state over the news, but I can't change what I've done. I've got to take the child and leave.
In Silver Snow, it's revealed at the very end that the reason Byleth was not your standard baby is because Rhea put Sothis' creststone into them as a request from their mom Citri, who previously used it as her heart and was willing to give up her life to save her babies, incidentally turning Byleth into Rhea's 13th vessel for Sothis. This is important because Gerald's diary makes clear he was kept in the dark about all of this, and fearing Rhea had something bad in mind for Byleth, he faked their death and ran away with them, keeping a low profile ever since. As a result, Leonie never meeting Byleth before, and not even knowing they existed beforehand at all, despite being Gerald's self-proclaimed apprentice, makes a lot more sense with this info at hand. After all, though Gerald kept working as a mercenary like usual, keeping Byleth's survival a secret was more important from his point of view if he wanted to protect Byleth from Rhea. And even after they had grown up more and started doing more work with him, in Leonie's support with Byleth, it's made clear Gerald told them very little about their own origins and Gerald's reputation. And the cover story he makes for Byleth when talking to Rhea is that they're another kid he had, which was unrelated to his past with Citri. Who wants Claude dead? Lurking in the shadows of Three Houses' story lies the fact that someone, maybe more than just one person, has put a target on Claude's back, and this has actually shaped the way he is. Mentions of Claude being a victim of assassination attempts can be found by looking at none other than Byleth's B- support with him.
Well, I grew up in an environment where it was necessary to think that way. It's like I told you before, I wasn't born into a life of luxury. Ever since I was a child, I've always been seen as different from those around me. An outsider of sorts. I've been resented and hated. There have even been attempts on my life. I don't believe I've earned such treatment, but that's how it goes for people like me.
And he's not bluffing. After the Wave 4 DLC's release, if you go to Abyss in Chapter 15 of Crimson Flower and 20 of Azure Moon, you can find one sole assassin who goes by Suspicious Man that lives up to his name.
That damn prince. Seems my role here is at an end. No matter. Should another chance present itself, I'll take a less subtle route.
Both chapters listed share something key in common. In the mission prior, Claude can just barely escape away from the Alliance after surviving the Adrestian Empire's attack and relinquishing his authority to Edelgard or Dimitri. The first line for this man in Crimson Flower are just ellipses points, while in Azure Moon he asks if the Alliance is finished. It doesn't really matter what the difference is, but what's more relevant in my opinion is that the assassin doesn't actually know whether or not Claude is dead, which is an option to have happen in Crimson Flower. I don't usually like to reference the Japanese script in other videos because the US version is the game we got, but this dialogue is so random, confusing, and honestly pointless that there's something in the Japanese script that I wanted to point out that might help to clarify a few things. It's fine, there might come another opportunity. Next time I'll get on a wyvern and it'll be fair. Come another opportunity for finishing the job? A less subtle route on a wyvern points out that next time the man has a chance to kill Claude, he will do it less suspiciously. The next question to ask is, well, how does this random guy know that Claude is the Prince of Almyra? The only other people in the game that are aware of his Almyran heritage in Fodlan is Balthus. Claude's only relevant political enemies, if you want to say that, is Count Gloucester, who literally had Claude's uncle killed, but he wouldn't know definitively that he's the Prince of Almyra. There is one thing about this that I want to address here, because I do suspect that Balthus and Golden Deer enthusiasts may point these two exchanges out. Number one, Claude and Balthus' support, and a Cindered Shadows conversation.
Say, Claude, it'd be a shame if your true identity was exposed, yeah? A real shame. I'm thinking you better set up a meeting between me and your mom. She was my first crush, after all. I had it bad for her back in the day. I'm still haunted by the fact that I never had the chance to tell her.
That's bothersome. That's sordid. What did you mean about it being lucky that you found me?
Oh, that. One of the guys I owe gold to is Count Gloucester. He said something about forgiving my debt if I could dig up some dirt on you. Figured this was my shot.
Aha, so it was purely selfish.
One may suspect that these could mean that it was Balthus who was hired by Count Gloucester to dig information up against Claude, like his real identity. This would allow for the theory that the assassin was hired by Count Gloucester to hold more weight, as this provides the Count with critical information about Claude that only he and Balthus would know. And so you could theorize that it was Balthus that was the key piece in the assassination going after Claude, but there are two critical issues with this theory. Number one, while Cindered Shadows and the main story differ in timeline, Balthus is offered debt relief by Count Gloucester before either game's events take place. But there is no proof that Balthus actually followed through with the offer even after knowing Claude's identity, especially when you consider that in the support with Claude, he hangs this information over his head so he could be set up on a date with his mom, which is hilarious and not actually something he was seriously going to do if he didn't get his way. And so, Count Gloucester can't possibly know he's the Prince of Almyra. And number two, if Count Gloucester did know this entire time, he'd have used this to blackmail Claude, use it as any other kind of leverage to become the Alliance leader, or just tell this information to everyone and drive Claude out entirely, not waste this information on an assassination attempt, where this kind of information wouldn't even need to be a prerequisite for that to happen. He could have just tried to kill Claude traditionally, I guess. On the flip side, some Almirans that know Claude's true identity are Nadir and Claude's half-siblings. Granted, this guy is an assassin, got confidential information about Claude, and the person hiring him could be among the many individuals in Fodlan that are suspicious of him, or at the very least, hate him, because a lot of people hate Claude. Theories popped up trying to answer who exactly in Elmira could be trying to kill Claude after the DLC released, but it wouldn't be up until the Nintendo Dream interview from 2020 when culprits were potentially confirmed. In the S-support conversation between Claude and Byleth, Claude speaks of Elmira when saying, "I have royal connections there too, insignificant as they may be." Does this mean Claude has actual siblings there? He probably does. He has several half-siblings on his father's side, and he was constantly discriminated against by those around him, which are the roots of his character. The Claude we know today had many rivals to contend with, forcing him to use his cunning to devise schemes and come out on top, all of which is tied to his ambition. The assassin himself is definitely not from Elmira. He doesn't have the Elmiran skin tone for one thing, and I'd be curious to know how exactly an Elmiran would know where the Abyss would be, but the bigger question mark is we don't know who hired him or why. The assassin asks about the Alliance being finished though, while sounding notably frustrated that Claude escaped, and in the case of Crimson Flower, even if you did kill him, the assassin doesn't seem to know that part yet. So is the client to the assassin an Elmiran royal who hates Claude and wants him to die so he can't take the Elmiran throne? Or is the client from Fodlan who is so suspicious of Claude that he found out his origins and deemed him unfit to lead the Alliance? In my opinion, I do think the client is Elmiran. As per the Japanese line, the assassin still has a mission to kill Claude, not just stop him from ruling the Alliance, especially since now, Claude nor the Alliance have any meaningful power since that's all been ceded to the Empire or the Kingdom depending on the route. Claude still has power in Elmira, so it stands to reason that the assassin still has to stop him from gaining that power. That's just my take. Who knows? And honestly, this is yet another game story moment that just exists and goes absolutely nowhere with no payoff or meaningful resolution. Another loose thread to add to the pile. In any case, the hypothesis that one of Claude's half-siblings wants him dead is more interesting in retrospect. The last big trailer for Three Hopes showcased a new Elmiran character due to their physical similarities to Claude, and while I'm personally quite doubtful that he's said half-sibling, there are folks out there who think this guy is at least a half-sibling mentioned in the Kasakahara interview. Now, if the random assassination subplot is actually a more relevant thing in Verdant Wildfire, that will be pretty crazy. As of right now though, I'd be shocked if that would end up being the case. Although it's worth mentioning that in Three Hopes, it's revealed that for Verdant Wildfire, your goal is to, quote, join with Claude to build a strong foundation as the Leicester Alliance fends off the Elmiran army. So looks like Elmira is going to have a more antagonistic role than ever before. But I digress. This scene is super random and in my opinion, did not need to be in the game. Well folks, that is going to do it for the fourth and probably final video in this series for now. If you haven't checked out the other ones, one about Sothis, Dimitri, and Edelgard, watch those next. I now pass the mic off to you. What do you think about these theories? Do you know any theories that you think would be interesting to see scrutinized in a future video? And while you're at it, please leave a like, as it greatly helps boost this video's search ratings. I want to give a huge thank you to everyone who has recently subscribed to the channel. The channel is very, very close to 95,000 subscribers, and that is incredible. It's actually just nuts how close this channel is getting to 100,000 subscribers. So if you haven't subscribed yet, but you like my Three Houses content, and if you want more content like this, I guarantee you what's going to happen. Three Hopes is really closing in soon, and I really intend to write a bunch of lore videos and character videos on that, even like gameplay guides as well. I'm really excited for that. It's going to be a really exciting time for the channel coming up and in the future very, very soon. So if you haven't subscribed yet, but you enjoy the content, please consider doing so. And if you want to support the channel outside of YouTube videos, you can check out the Patreon link as well. In any case, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Deuces.